So 2 weeks ago, I kind of dropped some new information, a new framework of thinking about the way that we interact and connect to each other. And I'm so excited about the potential of the 7 frequencies of communication. Because we human beings are designed to connect. All of us have this longing inside of us to be understood, to be known, to be seen, and to find a way to connect to other human beings. And part of the reason we're here is not simply to connect to God, but to connect to each other. And this past week, I've had the opportunity to have this particular conversation brought into almost 100,000 people across the world. And my mind just started reeling, going, what could happen if we could learn how to talk to each other? What would happen if we could shift from talking at each other to talking with each other? It could change everything. But one of the things that for me is inescapable is, even though as we looked at the 7 frequencies, and if you're new, here's a quick summary. 7 frequencies of communication that all human beings communicate from and listen from. There's a motivator, a challenger, a commander, a healer, a professor, a seer, a maven. But even when someone else has the same frequency as you do, it doesn't mean that you communicate the same way. You can actually have a different intensity of frequency. Sometimes someone speaks into our life and something transcendent happens, something we can't explain. It changes us. But most of the time, at least for me, words are just like white noise. I mean, you just wake up to people talking. Ever feel that way? It's just a nonstop noisy world. I don't know how you wake up, but if you wake up happy, you need medical attention. And I don't wake up unhappy. I wake up neutral, ready for life, and I need quiet. But my wife, Kim, she wakes up happy, and she wants to talk. I'm actually grateful that she lets me sleep several hours before she wants to have a conversation. But early on in our marriage, I would be asleep, and I would feel something hovering over me. And she'd be looking at me, and she'd say, "Are you awake?" How do you answer that? I am now. I didn't want to be. I wasn't a second ago. Why are you hovering over me? And then she wants to talk. She has ideas. She has dreams. She has thoughts. She wants to connect at a deep level. And I'm like, that can wait a little while. But once I go out into the rest of the world, you get coffee, you get breakfast, you have meetings, you go to work, you're interacting with other humans who are interrupting your experience. And they're all just talking and talking. And if you ever walk into a restaurant and it's so loud, it's all white noise. Except when it's not. Except when someone says something that shakes you or pierces you, gets inside of you. And sometimes those words can be devastating, and sometimes they can be a revelation. Sometimes they can hurt, and sometimes they can heal. You don't always know what kind of words are going to come into the space of your soul, but when they do, it is undeniable. I was doing some research on just some of the history of words and sounds and language and communication. I was struck by this discovery in 1680 by a man named Robert Hooke, who basically initiated the science of sematics, the visual science of sound. And how if you place sand on a metal plate and allow sounds to resonate through that metallic plate, the sand reshapes itself by different designs based on the frequency of the sound. And I just find it to be so not only fascinating, but insightful. Because we really don't pay attention to the power of sounds and how they shape our inner world. But we could be a complete study in the science of somatics because our souls are realigned by the frequencies we allow into the deep space of who we are. And I started thinking about this moment in the life of Jesus. Because when I study Jesus, I think, well, he has sort of an unfair advantage, being God. And not only is he God, but pretty quickly he had a huge reputation. And when you have a reputation, people listen to your words, and even if they agree or disagree, you still have weight of power. But what if no one knew who Jesus was? What if they didn't know that Jesus was Jesus? And that's exactly what happens in Luke chapter 24. This is after Jesus' crucifixion, after his death. And one of the consistent things in life is when someone's dead, they stay dead. And of course, Jesus hates rules, and he's always breaking rules. And so he's going to resurrect, but no one knows that. And so this is in that in-between period. And it tells us that he was walking down a road called Emmaus, and he comes up to a couple of guys, and they start giving him the tea about what's going on in Jerusalem. They go, haven't you heard? And he goes, heard what? And I go, there's somebody named Jesus of Nazareth, and they thought he was the Messiah, and he was crucified. He goes, no, tell me more. And they're like, and then there's a rumor that he's going to be resurrected from the dead. Today's that day, and he's just listening and walking with them, and he kept them from recognizing him. And this is where it picks up. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued as if he were going further. By the way, this is the one place, that Jesus could have made it in Hollywood. Because it says, he acted like he was going to go further. But then they urged him strongly, stay with us. For it's nearly evening. The day is almost over. So he went in and stayed with them. So this is Jesus being a thespian. I'm leaving. Oh, I'll stay. Right? And it says, then when he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, it is true, the Lord has risen and he has appeared to Simon. And then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. But the phrase I want us to focus on is this one. Were not our hearts burning within us when he talked to us on the road? I'm absolutely convinced that when you begin to speak at your highest frequency, your words will begin to burn deeply inside of the souls of other people. And one of the reasons we come together, even in places like this, because we hope against hope, that someone might say something that brings hope to us when we feel filled with despair. That someone will convince us, that somehow their words will penetrate our souls and convince us we have significance when we feel insignificant. That somehow someone's words might inspire us to such a degree that we would find the courage to live the life that we long to live when we're so filled with fear, paralyzed by life. And somehow someone's words infuses into us and it changes us. It becomes the science of somatics. There is a visual reconfiguration due to the frequency that pierces within us. Did not his words burn in our hearts? So even though I began this conversation about frequency, I want to talk to you about how to elevate your frequency, how to have a higher frequency. Because I hope that you want your words to have so much power that when you speak to someone, not on a stage, but just when you're sitting over coffee, when you're sharing a meal together, when you're walking together to get your steps in, that you could actually share something so significant, so beautiful, so profound, that it changes the person who hears the sound of your voice. How can we elevate our frequency to create life inside of other people? I want to give you a very simple formula. Empathy plus authenticity creates a high frequency. Let's begin with empathy. And I want to submit to you, and we'll look at this as well, but that there has never been a human being who has expressed a pure essence of empathy than Jesus. And a huge part of why people like Jesus even when they hate Christianity. Why they're drawn to Jesus even when they hate religion. Why they find Jesus compelling even when they don't believe in the Bible is that Jesus in his life and even the mythology of him is this pure expression of empathy that all of us know we were created to have and yet oftentimes fall short of. And empathy is different than pity. It's easy to pity someone because when you pity someone, you're looking down at them and you just feel bad that they have less than you, but you might move on. And pity is different than sympathy. You can have sympathy for someone because you can genuinely feel for another human being, but you're feeling for them. Or you might actually have compassion. I love compassion. My wife, Kim, is compassion wrapped up in skin because compassion is concern plus action. And so when a person has compassion, they act on what they care about. But empathy is a different thing. Empathy is not pity, it's not sympathy, it's not compassion. Empathy is being able to have a visceral connection to another person's inner world, where it's almost as if you become a shapeshifter, and now your soul has gone inside of someone else's soul, and now you feel the world from how they feel the world. You see the world from how they see the world. You think about life from how they think about life. You see from their vantage point, not from yours. To me, empathy is this incredible ability to leave your soul and enter into someone else's soul space. And then you understand. You understand them at the deepest level. When you have empathy, you're not filled with an awareness of your own emotions because you're aware of theirs. A lot of people confuse empathy with being in your feelings. A lot of people think, oh, I have so much empathy. No, you just have a lot of feelings. A lot of people think that empathy means that you bring all your feelings into every room. Because people need to know how you feel, right? Because your emotions are valid. Everyone has told you that. You need to go with your emotions. The problem is some of you are so full of emotion, you don't leave any oxygen for anyone else's emotions. When you have empathy, it's not that you're aware of how you feel, you actually are inside of how they feel. You become a servant of someone else's inner world, paying attention how they see and think and feel. It's a beautiful space to be in, which is, to me, so extraordinary that the scriptures would tell us that God would leave that transcendent eternity and step into time and space and walk among us and take on our humanity so that he could vicariously experience our pain and our sorrow and our disappointment and our fear. And he could experience our humanity completely so that he could see how we see him and how we see life. Not from his vantage point, but from ours. And because there are 7 frequencies and one of them is the healer frequency, you might think that, oh, healers are the one with empathy, but that's not always true. Because remember, each one of these frequencies has a shadow. And so many times a person with a healer frequency can be living in their shadow, and it's not really about healing someone else, it's about having others heal you. And a person with a healer frequency can actually lack empathy because they're not paying attention to others but to themselves. And if you want to elevate as a motivator, then you need to deepen your empathy. If you want to elevate as a challenger, you need to deepen your empathy. If you want to elevate as a seer, deepen your empathy. There is not a single frequency that can elevate without empathy. Probably my favorite passage in all the Bible is in John chapter 8. I think this is the image of Jesus that changed my life about Jesus. Begins in verse 2. It says, at dawn, Jesus appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" Can you imagine Jesus answering with his professor frequency? Well, the law says you should stone her. I'll see you on Tuesday. They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone." Then he stooped down and wrote on the ground again. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." I love this moment as a perfect example of extraordinary communication because so few words were said. Being an effective communicator isn't about the one who talks too much. It's the one who says what must be said. And in this moment, Jesus does something extraordinary. His empathy, it's almost as if it transports him into the soul of this woman, and he says for her what she cannot say for herself. Because she's dragged out of this bed, she's naked in front of Jesus, and they have absolutely no concern about her life. They want to trap Jesus, so they're willing to humiliate her and even kill her so they can trap Jesus. They're just stone cold killers. And that's what religion does to you. And instead of having this long theological discussion with them, Jesus just stoops down and starts writing on the sand as he listens to their accusations. Then he stands up and just makes one basic proposition. Whoever's without sin, throw the first stone. Then he kneels down and starts writing again. And there's so many speculative ideas what Jesus wrote. Because it says that they dropped their stones from the oldest to the youngest. And I imagine the longer you live, the more accumulated guilt and shame you have. And maybe Jesus was just writing the names of other prostitutes that he knew they'd been with. Oh, yeah. I just leave my stone right here. You know? Or other sins that they had hidden that Jesus somehow wrote. But I think what's amazing, though, is even in a moment where Jesus is able to let them know how they could be condemned, he writes it in the sand because God never wants to permanently judge any of us. He says for this woman what she cannot say for herself. Whoever's without sin, throw the first stone. Who are you to judge me, to condemn me? What's so fascinating to me is how many of us spend our energy trying to condemn and belittle and demean other people so that we can feel better about ourselves. But not only does Jesus' empathy allow him to see inside of her, it allows him to see inside of the accusers. He looks at them and says, whoever is without sin, throw the first stone. It's as if Jesus just transported himself inside of them and saw the guilt and shame that was driving their condemnation and judgmentalism. People who experience forgiveness do not condemn other people. People who have found freedom from their shame do not shame other people. He asked just the question they needed, because when you can see from someone's inner world, you know exactly what they need to hear. And then it's wonderful to me that he doesn't tell her, he asks her, so who condemns you? It's almost as if Jesus is confounded. So where are the condemners? Where'd they go? Who condemns you? No one. Can you imagine how liberating it was when she could say, no one condemns me? And she could say it to Jesus. And then Jesus said, well, then neither do I condemn you. It's almost as if he's saying, the world keeps trying to drag me into their condemnation. Maybe the reason we see God as a condemning God is because we are the condemning gods. And we keep trying to drag God into our gutter. And then he does say, now go and sin no more. Choose the life you're created to live. Empathy gives you an insight that nothing else will. It doesn't matter which frequency you have. And one of the frequencies that everyone seems to love making fun of is the commander frequency. And I just can't even imagine the power of someone with a commander frequency who has a deep sense of empathy for people. Because when you're driven with empathy and your frequency is commander, you're going to make such a dramatic impact on people's lives. And nothing but nothing is going to stop you from making the world a better place. When you have empathy, your frequency elevates. But you also need authenticity. When you have authenticity, you end up having this incredible chemical compound that elevates your personal frequency as you speak into people's lives. Authenticity is tricky because being authentic is a challenge. Being authentic is being aware of your true self, of your original being. And one of the challenges is that we spend so much energy being our inauthentic selves. I use this high-level psychological assessment on business people, and one of the things I can discover is how much energy they use in what's called image management. Now, on a scale from 1 to 99, almost every successful person I've graphed is in their 90s. That means if you want to be successful, create a persona and don't let people see who you really are. Which is why, by the way, people of great success so oftentimes feel so lonely. Because they've crafted a persona that gives them incredible success, but they know when they're alone at night that no one knows them because no one can see them. And by the way, when I've graphed people here, you're the same. That image management is so high, and it lets me know you're spending all your energy becoming who you think other people want you to be. The problem with that is if you spend your whole life becoming what everyone else wants you to be, you don't know who you are. And so when you strive to become your authentic self, it can be incredibly painful and difficult. Because let me tell you, the downside of discovering your authentic self is that you may not like what you find. Wow, this is my authentic me. I like the image. You cannot change from the inside out if you cannot see what's inside. And so many of us spend our lives refining our image rather than allowing God to transform our essence. Don't clap. Because we're not there yet. Because it's, I think, one of the most difficult journeys in life to become an authentic human being. To be true to who you are. And so when I'm around my friends with high image management, I think, wow, they're so crafted. It's amazing. Everyone likes them. They know exactly who to be in every room. It's almost like a superpower. Now, if you have low image management, you are your authentic self. And what happens is this. When you have high image management, everyone loves you, but no one knows you. When you have low image management, everyone knows you, but no one loves you. So you try to figure out how to balance that out. By the way, on that grid, so you can know, on the scale of image management, I'm an 11. I'm on the low end. My whole family knows this. My wife of 40 years really knows this. I cannot tell you how many times she would say, can you just pretend? That you like them? Can you just not say what you're really thinking? It takes so much energy for me to be who I'm not, because I don't have all those layers that I've developed over the years. I remember when Aaron, our son, first came back from New York, and he would get up here and do announcements or speak a little bit, and it's crazy. Every actor in the city would come up with notes, as if this was a theater. And I would have people come up to me, hey, how can I give you notes so you can be better? Thank you so much. I appreciate your interest in investing in my life. And I remember one time I just said to him, just be your authentic self, because there's just so much pressure. People expect him to be me, to be like me, to be the same or whatever. And there's just so much pressure when he was young. And I just kept saying, be your authentic self, be your authentic self, be your authentic self. And one day, because he has that sharp edge mind, he said, Dad, what if my authentic self is simply inauthentic? He said, this is why you're going to have problems all of your life. Because his image management is lower than mine. He just doesn't want to spend any energy pretending he's someone he's not. And if it costs him acceptance, then so be it. That takes more courage than you could ever imagine, to be who you really are. But if you don't discover your authentic self, you will never elevate your frequency to the highest level, because people don't need to hear from the image of you. People need to hear from the soul of you. And when you open yourself up to other people, that's when your voice begins to resonate. Empathy is the power to see others, but authenticity is the power to let others see you. And when you bring both empathy and authenticity, you have a chemical compound that elevates your frequency to such a high level that when you speak, life happens. People's lives are changed. You become a student of somatics. You become the visual shaper of sound by shaping the souls, the lives, the hearts, the minds of people whose lives you speak into. There was a guy named Nathanael, and I always found him to be kind of peculiar, because when Jesus called out his disciples, it was always with commander: follow me, follow me, follow me. By the way, that's a commander expanding, follow me. But when Nathanael was different, in John chapter 1, verse 45, it says, Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nazareth? Can anything good come out from there? That's how you know Nathanael is so authentic. He doesn't even hide it. I hate Nazareth. Nazareth is the valley. Nazareth is Glendale. Come on, you know. Nazareth is Encino. You know where Nazareth is. Can anything good come out of there? I love Nathanael. Philip's like, hey, come on. Act like you care. Act like you lack Galilee. I don't like Galilee. If he's a Galilean, I don't like him already. And he says, come and see, said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. So here's a person in whom there's nothing false. Here's a person that has no image management. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. I love his response. He knows who he is. How do you know me? Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. There's a lot of subtext here that doesn't really make sense. Why is Nathanael suddenly saying, Jesus, you're the one? Just because Jesus said, I saw you under the fig tree. Just because he said, how do you know me? Because he said, you're a person without falsehood. What is this conversation all about? There's a reason Nathanael's under that fig tree. He wasn't at the temple trying to act religious. He wasn't in a public square trying to earn reputation and credibility. He was under a fig tree trying to find God. He was in that private space where nothing mattered except who he really was and what he really longed for. And Jesus is saying to him, Nathanael, you know that place you go to hide where you're simply trying to find God? I saw you there because it was me you were searching for. And I saw you, and there's nothing false in you. He's saying, Nathanael, you are an authentic human being. And that's what God is looking for. God is not trying to paint an image on your persona. God is trying to destroy the mask you use to hide yourself so that you can know who you really are. And know that who you are is good enough for God to make a difference in the world with. What people long for is to connect at a deeply beautiful human level. They want you to be without guile, without falsehood, even when they're afraid to be true and real and transparent. By the way, the reason Jesus is so compelling is that he is the pure manifestation of empathy and authenticity. Because when you read about him, you realize this is an authentic human being with an unexplainable level of empathy for every single person he met. He never had anything false. He never pretended. There was no persona. He was just who he was, and you could accept him or reject him, but you knew him. And God wants to give you that kind of confidence in your life, to be who you're created to be. Let me tell you, in a couple days I turned 66, and let me tell you, one of the nice things about like being nearly dead. I didn't have the energy in my 20s to be who everyone wanted me to be. I did not have the energy in my 30s to put on a mask so that I could fit in the room. I did not have the energy in my 40s to conform to the system so that I could have an easier journey towards success. And the 50s, there was just no point in trying to fit into the world. In my 60s, do you really think I care? Man, if I live longer, I will live more free. Because the moment you stop living your life for what others say about you or think about you, you are finally free to be yourself. You know what I hate? I'm going to close with this. I hate on social media when people say, how can you say that you're a pastor? Or they'll send a note, how can you say that? Because Sarah and I do a podcast together, you're a pastor's son. I'm like, how can I say that? Because I'm free. That's why I can say that. See, I don't have to worry about what you think. I just want you to know who I am. And in knowing who I am, let's see if you'll find the courage to let me know who you are. And then we can actually begin to have a conversation. Because that's when communication happens. That's when community happens. That's when communion happens. When we strip our souls bare and say, this is who I am. I'm going to trust you to love me and accept me. And let's see what God can do with that. Would you just bow your heads with me just for a moment? You may be here for the first time. Or maybe you're incredibly uncomfortable being in a church space. But I am convinced that something may have happened over these moments where God has whispered into your soul that he loves you, that you matter, that your life can be different. And maybe God has surprised you with himself. Jesus did not die so that you could be a good person who safely fits into the system and conforms to society. That's not worthy of a death. It's not worthy of a sacrifice. Jesus died because you were designed by God as a unique human being with unique gifts and talents and passions that the world desperately needs. And God wants to set you free to be your authentic self, filled with empathy for the world. You want to live at your highest frequency? Open your life to Jesus. He will speak into your life and set you free. He will speak into your life and forgive you and free you of all your guilt and shame. If you want to live at your highest frequency, then recognize you're created by God, for God, and that's why Jesus came. And if you're ready to live in that, I want to invite you to open your life to Jesus, to give your life to him. Do a simple prayer. Jesus, I give you my life. It's that simple. This isn't hard. This isn't magic. This isn't physics. It's relationships. In this moment, if you're ready to have a relationship with the God who loves you through Jesus, who died for you, just tell him right now, Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. If this is your prayer, I want to pray for you. If you just whispered in the depth of your soul, Jesus, I give you my life, I want you to find the courage right now just to hold your hand up high. I just want to see you. But I also want you to have a moment of courage where you raise your hand and go visible. Jesus, I give you my life. Anyone else? Beautiful. Anyone else? Beautiful. Jesus, I give you my life. Anyone else? Wonderful. I see you. Jesus, I give you my life. Anyone else? Father, I thank you for each person who in this moment has crossed the line of faith, has opened their lives to you. I thank you that you meet us in moments like this and change us forever. I know it's not an accident, Jesus, that the Bible calls you the Word of God. Because when you speak into our lives, we come to life. God, I pray for each person that they would just know how much you love them, that you would wrap them up in your presence and let them know they belong to you. And God, I pray that today would be a defining moment, the beginning of new things for them. We thank you, Jesus, that you are the true, authentic human who carries the empathy of God for every person, and that you teach us how to be human again. We pray in your name, Jesus. Amen. Can we just thank God for all those who responded to him today? So good. I just want to encourage you to keep coming over the weeks. The book I wrote is really small, and there's so much more to talk about. Today's conversation was just like one page in the book near the back. It's really easy to miss. Because I just want to pour into you way more than I pour into the book even. And I want you to live your life so fully that you speak life to every person. When you go to get coffee today, when you go get lunch, when you interact with that species known as humans, I want you to think about your words. When you say thank you, when you see someone and ask them how their day is, when someone serves you at the table and you take a moment and you see them as a human being, I want you to weight the power of your words and to realize everything you say matters, because everything you say materializes. All right, I love you guys.